Greg $200,000 in field trip money and fundraiser cash that never made it to the bank. I oversaw these accounts for years, and every dollar collected was handled through this office.
A single call from a PTA treasurer set this investigation in motion. That call led straight to Gregory Lim, a school principal who had been quietly stealing from children's field trip funds for years.
The cash came in from those families and it never touched the activity account, not once. I'm not discussing the ledgers or any of those accounts without my attorney.
She had 3 pages of bank statements in front of her. She had 4 years of fundraiser receipts in a folder on her lap. And every single line told her the same thing. The numbers did not match. They had never matched. By the end of that conversation, Rachel Donnelly would walk out of the principal's office and drive directly to the Brookfield Township Police Department. Within 90 days, state investigators would seize his computer, his ledgers, and a locked drawer in his desk containing 7 years of doctored deposit slips. They would interview 31 parents, 11 teachers, and 4 PTA officers. They would document $197,000 stolen from children. He had been the principal of Westmoreland Elementary for 9 years. Before we go any further, I want you to think about something. How many times have you handed your kid a sealed envelope of cash for a field trip and never thought twice about where it went? Drop a comment and tell me. And if you're new to this channel, subscribe now. We cover the cases that hit closest to home every single week. Gregory Lim was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1975. His father was an assistant manager at a Sears Auto Center on Lehigh Street. His mother worked the front desk at a dental office and clipped coupons on Sunday mornings at the kitchen table. The Lims were not wealthy. They were the kind of family that put away $40 a week into a Christmas Club account at Merchants Bank and treated a dinner out at Friendly's as a celebration. Gregory was the older of 2 children. He had a younger sister named Grace, who would eventually become a registered nurse in Bethlehem. As a child, Gregory was quiet. He liked maps. He liked baseball cards. He liked the order of things. His 3rd grade teacher at McKinley Elementary wrote on his report card that he was the kind of student who returns the eraser to the exact spot it was borrowed from. He went to Parkland High School, where he played second base for 2 seasons, ran the morning announcements during his senior year, and graduated in the top 15%. He did not get into Penn State, his first choice. He went to Kutztown University instead, on a partial financial aid package, and worked 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore, restocking textbooks. He paid for his own meal plan. He wore the same brown winter coat for 4 years. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education in 1997. His first teaching job was a 5th grade classroom at Trexlertown Elementary, where he earned $26,400 a year. His first principal there wrote in his year-end evaluation that he was patient with struggling readers, exceptionally organized, and one of the few first-year teachers who does not require constant supervision. He met his wife, Linda Park, at a summer professional development workshop in Reading in 2001. Linda taught 2nd grade. She had grown up in New Jersey and had the kind of laugh that filled a room. They married in October 2003 at a Korean Presbyterian church outside Philadelphia. They bought a 3-bedroom split level on Sycamore Lane in Brookfield Township in 2005 for $186,000. They had 2 children, a son, Marcus, born in 2006, and a daughter, Sophia, born in 2009. By 2008, Gregory had moved into the assistant principal role at Pine Grove Elementary. By 2014, after completing his master's in educational leadership at Lehigh University over 6 years of night classes, he was promoted to principal of Westmoreland Elementary School. His starting salary was $83,400. His superintendent at the time, Dr. Harold Pemberton, wrote in his recommendation that Gregory was detail-oriented, calm under pressure, and trusted implicitly by parents, teachers, and the central office alike. Trusted implicitly. Those were the exact words. Westmoreland Elementary served 418 students, pre-kindergarten through 5th grade, 2 sections per grade. A staff of 26 teachers, 4 classroom aides, 2 custodians, a part-time nurse, and a full-time secretary named Patricia Volk, who had been at the school since 1991 and ran the front desk the way an air traffic controller runs a tower. To the parents of Brookfield Township, Gregory Lim was a fixture. He stood at the curb every morning at 7:55 a.m. in any weather, holding the school door open. He knew every student by name within the first 2 weeks of the year. He attended every band concert, every spring musical, every fifth-grade promotion ceremony. He answered emails on Sundays. He returned phone calls within the hour. He was, by every external measure, an exceptional principal. That was the problem. To understand what Gregory Lim did, you have to understand how money moves through an elementary school. Not the big money. The big money, things like teacher salaries and building maintenance and textbook purchases, runs through the district's central office, gets routed through formal purchase orders, gets audited annually by a regional accounting firm, gets reported to the State Department of Education in line item detail. The big money is watched. The small money is not. The small money in an elementary school is the student activity account. It is the bucket that field trip cash drops into. It is where book fair proceeds go. It is where the fall fundraiser money lives, the magazine drive, the cookie dough sale, the holiday wreath order. It is where the year-end picnic fund sits. It is where the teacher appreciation breakfast donations get parked. It is cash heavy. It is paperwork light. And in most elementary schools across America, it is overseen by exactly one person. At Westmoreland Elementary, that person was the principal. The mechanics of it were almost insultingly simple. A parent sent in a sealed envelope with $25 for the third-grade trip to Hershey Park. The teacher collected the envelopes. The teacher walked the envelopes down to the main office at the end of the day. The envelopes went into a manila folder labeled with the grade and the trip. The folder went into the principal's office. The principal counted the cash. The principal recorded the total in a green hardcover ledger book. The principal walked the cash to the bank, deposited it into the school's activity account at the Brookfield Savings and Loan Branch on Main Street, and stapled the deposit slip into the ledger. That was the entire control system. One person, one ledger, one signature on the deposit slip. No second set of eyes review, no internal audit, no reconciliation against the bank statement by anyone other than the principal himself. The district handled annual external audits of the general fund. The activity accounts were audited every 3 years on a rotating schedule, and the audit was conducted by a regional firm that examined 6 districts in 3 months and relied almost entirely on the documentation handed to them by the principal. The system trusted Gregory Lim because the system had to trust someone. Elementary schools across Pennsylvania ran on this exact framework. They had for 40 years. It had worked, mostly, because most principals were honest people doing a hard job for modest pay. But the gap was there. The system had a hole shaped exactly like one person. Therefore, the only thing standing between $200,000 in children's field trip money and someone's personal checking account was the conscience of a single man. The first time Gregory Lim took cash that did not belong to him was almost certainly an accident, or what felt like an accident at the time. Investigators would later piece together that the first confirmed discrepancy appeared in the spring of 2015, less than a year after he was promoted to principal. It was a third-grade field trip to the Crayola Experience in Easton. 52 students, $25 each, $1,300 in cash collected. The trip happened. The buses went. The kids came home with their souvenir crayons. The deposit slip Gregory stapled into the green ledger that week said $1,225, $75 short of the collection total, $75. The cost of dinner out with the family. No one noticed. No one checked. The teacher who collected the cash trusted that the totals had been logged correctly. The PTA officer who signed off on the trip report trusted that the principal's books matched. The district trusted the principal. The principal trusted himself, so he did it again. The pattern that emerged, reconstructed later from years of ledger entries and bank deposit slips, was clinical in its restraint. He never took a full envelope. He never made a big single grab. He took $20 from a fundraiser deposit, $40 from a book fair tally, $60 from a field trip collection. He took the kinds of amounts that would never show up as a missing chunk because the original collection totals were always estimates anyway. Fundraisers ran over or under by small margins every year. Kids brought extra cash. Teachers occasionally added their own 20 for a student whose family couldn't afford the trip. His method was 3 steps, and he repeated them for nearly 7 years. First, he physically counted the cash himself, alone, in his office, with the door closed. Then he wrote a deposit total in the green ledger that was lower than the actual cash counted. The skim varied, sometimes $30, sometimes $110, rarely more than $200 from any single deposit. Finally, he walked the underreported deposit to the bank, handed over the smaller amount, and pocketed the difference in cash. The pocketed cash went home in his lunch bag. He paid for groceries, gas, restaurant dinners, his son's traveling basketball team fees, his daughter's piano lessons, the family's 2 annual vacations, a beach week in Stone Harbor, and a winter trip to the Poconos. He never bought anything flashy. He drove a 2011 Honda Pilot with 170,000 miles on it. He wore the same 3 sport coats to work for years. His house had the same kitchen it had when they bought it in 2005. His vacations were normal. His clothing was normal. His life looked exactly like the life of an $84,000 a year educator with 2 kids in public school. That was the genius of it. He skimmed inside the noise. He skimmed from the fall magazine drive. He skimmed from the winter wreath sale. He skimmed from the spring jogathon. He skimmed from the year-end carnival ticket sales. He skimmed from the teacher appreciation breakfast donations, which is to say, he stole from money parents sent in to buy bagels for the people teaching their children. He skimmed from every single field trip from 2015 through 2021. Every grade, every season, every venue. Forensic accountants would later identify 213 separate skim transactions across 6.5 years. The smallest was $15. The largest was $410. The total they could document with certainty was $197,420. The actual number was almost certainly higher. Some early year ledgers had pages that had been removed and replaced. Some deposits from 2015 and 2016 had no original source documentation at all. The signs in retrospect were everywhere. The activity account never grew the way it should have, even in years with record fundraisers. The annual carryover balance stayed flat or declined slightly, even as enrollment and fundraising volume increased. A few teachers, over the years, had quietly wondered why the field trip account never seemed to have enough money in it for the bus rentals, despite the fact that they had collected the full required amount. No one followed up. He was the principal. He was Gregory. They trusted him. The catalyst was a woman named Rachel Donnelly. Rachel was 43 years old, the mother of a 4th grader and a 2nd grader at Westmoreland Elementary, and the newly elected treasurer of the Parent-Teacher Association. She had spent 14 years as a staff accountant for a regional health insurance company before taking a step back to part-time consulting after her 2nd child was born. She was, by professional training and personal disposition, a person who reconciled accounts. In October of 2021, Rachel volunteered to organize the Fall Fundraiser, a community pumpkin festival held in the school parking lot with carnival games, a bake sale, a hayride, and a silent auction donated by local businesses. She personally coordinated 46 volunteers. She personally counted every dollar of cash collection at the end of the night, alongside 2 other PTA officers. She wrote down the total on a yellow legal pad. $11,462. She handed the cash, in a zippered bank bag, to Gregory Lim that night in the school's main office. She watched him put it in the safe. She thanked him and went home and slept the way you sleep after running a successful event with 2 children waiting for you. 3 weeks later, the PTA's quarterly statement arrived from the school district business office. Rachel sat down at her kitchen table on a Saturday morning with the statement and a fresh cup of coffee. She looked at the line item for the Pumpkin Festival deposit. $10,870, $592 short. Rachel checked her math. She checked it again. She pulled up her photos of the yellow legal pad. She emailed the 2 other PTA officers who had been at the count. They confirmed the $11,462 total. She emailed the school district business office and asked for a copy of the deposit slip. The deposit slip showed $10,870. The deposit had been made by Gregory Lim. The date matched the morning after the festival. Rachel did not jump to conclusions. She thought at first that it had to be a paperwork error, a miscount on her end, a misread on the slip, something explainable. She emailed Gregory and asked, politely, if there was a discrepancy somewhere she might have missed. His response came back within an hour. He apologized for the confusion. He said that the difference reflected refunds issued to 2 families whose children had not attended after paying in advance. He said he would pull the documentation and provide it to her. She waited. The documentation did not come. She waited another week. Still nothing. She emailed again. He apologized again. He said he had been swamped. He said he would have it to her by Friday. By Friday, she had been a staff accountant for 14 years. She knew exactly what someone who was about to fabricate documentation sounded like. Therefore, she did not wait. She drove to her old colleague at a forensic accounting firm in King of Prussia on a Saturday morning, asked him to look at 6 months of activity account statements she had legally obtained as the elected PTA treasurer, and 24 hours later, he called her back and told her she needed to call the police. We're heading into the investigation now. If you're still here, you already know this story is going to get worse before it gets better. Subscribe and hit the bell. We cover the cases nobody else is willing to tell, every single week, and the next one lands harder than this. Detective Karen Whitaker of the Brookfield Township Police Department was assigned to the case in early December 2021. She had 18 years on the force, 11 of them in financial crimes. She had handled embezzlement cases against bookkeepers, church treasurers, township road crew supervisors, and a youth soccer league president. She had never investigated an elementary school principal. She started with the bank. Whitaker subpoenaed 5 years of activity account records from Brookfield Savings and Loan. She subpoenaed the same 5 years of ledger entries from the school district business office. She subpoenaed Gregory Lim's personal banking records under a sealed warrant. She subpoenaed his credit card statements. She pulled property tax records, vehicle registration records, his wife's bank statements, and the activity records of every fundraiser Westmoreland Elementary had run since 2015. What she found, over the course of a 14-month forensic review, was a near-perfect paper trail of a man stealing from children. The cash collections, reconstructed from teacher records, classroom envelope logs, and parent receipts, showed totals that consistently exceeded the deposit amounts recorded in the green ledger and confirmed on the bank statements. The discrepancies were small. They were almost always small, but there were 213 of them. The bank deposits showed only the lower amounts. The ledger entries matched the lower amounts. The annual reports to the district matched the lower amounts. Everything in the principal's documentation was internally consistent, which is exactly what an accountant would do if she were systematically removing cash before the deposit was ever made. The smoking gun came in 2 pieces. The first was a locked drawer in Gregory Lim's office at Westmoreland Elementary, opened pursuant to a search warrant executed at 4:15 p.m. on a Tuesday in February 2022, after the students had gone home and the building was nearly empty. Inside the drawer, in a manila folder marked MISC, were 31 original yellow carbon copies of cash count sheets, the worksheets that teachers had handed in along with the cash before he doctored the ledger entries. He had kept them. For 7 years, he had kept the original counts. The second piece was the bank account. Gregory Lim had a checking account at PNC Bank, separate from the joint household account he shared with his wife, that he had opened in 2014, 1 month after his promotion to principal. The account was in his name only. Linda Lim did not know it existed. It had received over the course of 7 years a steady drip of cash deposits, made in person at branch locations across 3 counties, in amounts of $100 to $400, on dates that consistently fell within 48 hours of activity account discrepancies at Westmoreland. The total of cash deposits into that account between 2015 and 2021 was $193,800. The withdrawals from the account paid for his son's traveling basketball league, his daughter's piano lessons, his wife's birthday dinners, 2 family vacations a year, a new water heater, a new transmission for the Honda Pilot, Christmas gifts, Easter dresses, the 1,000 small comforts of a middle-class family living slightly beyond what an $84,000 salary could comfortably provide. Whitaker also recovered text messages from his phone. Most were ordinary, but there was a string of messages exchanged with a high school friend who had asked Gregory for a loan in 2019 that read like a confession in slow motion. Friend, March 14, 2019. Hey man, I hate to ask, but things are tight. Could you spot me $2K till May? Gregory, March 14, 2019. It's tight on this end too, brother. School money is the only money these days. Friend, Lowell, you principals are rolling in it. Gregory, you'd be surprised what flows through this office. Whitaker stared at that last line for a long time. They arrested him at 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday in April 2022. He was in his office, halfway through reading the morning announcements over the school's intercom system. Mrs. Volk, the front desk secretary, came in quietly while he was reading the lunch menu and tapped him on the shoulder. There were 2 detectives waiting in the lobby. He nodded. He told the students he loved them and that they should have a wonderful day. He set the microphone down. He walked out of his office, through the lobby, and out the front door of Westmoreland Elementary in handcuffs. A second-grade class returning from gym saw him being put into the back seat of an unmarked sedan. In the interview room at the Brookfield Township Police Department, Detective Whitaker and her partner sat across from him. He had been advised of his rights. He had declined to call an attorney yet. He had agreed to talk. Whitaker laid the carbon copies on the table, then the deposit slips, then the PNC bank statements, then the spreadsheet. The transcript of that interview ran 68 minutes. Do you know what these are, Mr. Lim? They look like cash count sheets. They are, 213 of them, from your office, from the locked drawer. I keep records. Do you keep records of why the deposit amounts in your ledger never match the counts on these sheets? I don't think I should answer that without an attorney. That's your right, Mr. Lim, but I want you to look at one more thing first. She slid the PNC statements across the table. I want a lawyer. He did not speak again. He sat there for 13 more minutes while paperwork was completed. He did not cry. He did not protest. He did not ask about his wife, or his children, or the school. He stared at the table. When Linda Lim arrived at the police station that afternoon, she was carrying a Tupperware of his lunch. She had not been told her husband had been arrested. She had been told there was an emergency and she needed to come in. She set the Tupperware down on the lobby counter and asked the desk sergeant where her husband was. That conversation was not recorded, but the sergeant who took it would later say that when he told her what her husband had been charged with, she did not say anything for almost a full minute. Then she said, very quietly, "How much?" He told her. She walked outside, sat down on the bench in front of the police station, and stayed there until her sister could come pick her up. The Lancaster County District Attorney's Office filed charges on a Monday morning in late April 2022. The indictment listed 4 counts: theft by unlawful taking, theft by deception, embezzlement, and tampering with public records. The assigned prosecutor was an assistant district attorney named Cassandra Reeves, who had handled 14 public corruption cases in 9 years and lost 2. Gregory Lim retained a defense attorney named Mitchell Goldfarb out of Allentown. Goldfarb was experienced, expensive, and pragmatic. He looked at the carbon copies. He looked at the PNC statements. He looked at the deposit-by-deposit reconstruction Detective Whitaker's forensic accountant had built across 213 transactions over 6.5 years. He told his client there was no trial to be won here. Gregory Lim entered a guilty plea on all 4 counts at a pre-trial conference in September 2022. He waived his right to a jury trial. He agreed to full restitution. He agreed to cooperate with the school district's internal audit and to provide testimony, if requested, to any related administrative proceedings. The sentencing hearing was held on January 19, 2023, before the Honorable Walter Krasno in Courtroom 3A of the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas. The courtroom was full. 63 parents of current and former Westmoreland Elementary students were in attendance. 4 teachers, Mrs. Volk, the front desk secretary, the superintendent of the Brookfield Township School District, 11 members of the press. The prosecution called 4 victim impact witnesses. The first was Rachel Donnelly. She read a statement that lasted 6 minutes. She talked about the Pumpkin Festival. She talked about the volunteers. She talked about the second graders who had hand-drawn signs for the bake sale table because they were so excited that the proceeds were going to pay for their year-end class trip to the Philadelphia Zoo. She talked about how her own daughter had asked her, 2 days after the arrest, whether Mr. Lim was the bad guy now. The second was a 4th grade teacher named Diane Carmody, who had taught at Westmoreland for 19 years. She talked about the 4 trips her class had taken during Gregory's tenure as principal. The ones where she'd had to ask parents to send in an extra $5 because the activity account was running thin. She had not known. None of them had known. The third was a parent named David Ortiz, a single father of 2 whose family had received a scholarship the previous spring to cover the 5th grade end-of-year trip to Washington, D.C. He had thanked Gregory in person, by handshake, in the main office. He had cried in front of him. The scholarship, as it turned out, had not existed. Other parents had quietly covered the cost. Gregory had taken credit, and probably money, for an act of generosity that other people had performed. The fourth was Linda Lim. She did not speak for the defense. She spoke for the victims. She read a statement that she had clearly written over many nights. She apologized to every parent in that courtroom on behalf of a family she had thought she knew. She said she had filed for divorce 4 weeks after the arrest. She said her children had been pulled out of Westmoreland Elementary and enrolled in a school 3 districts away. She said she did not know the man sitting at the defense table. When she finished, she did not look at her husband. Judge Krasno's sentencing statement ran 9 minutes. He addressed the defendant directly. Mr. Lim, the position of an elementary school principal is one of the most trusted in any community in this Commonwealth. Parents send their children into your building every morning, believing that the people inside that building will care for them, teach them, and act in their interest. You held that trust for 9 years at Westmoreland. You held it before that for 14 years as a teacher and assistant principal. You knew exactly what you were doing every time you walked to that bank with cash that did not belong to you. You did it 213 times. You did it for nearly 7 years. You did it for amounts as small as $15. The smallness of the amounts is the cruelest thing about this case. You stole from the parts of childhood that are already underfunded. You stole the zoo trip, and the book fair, and the pumpkin festival. You stole from working parents who sent their cash in sealed envelopes with their children's names written on the outside in marker. This court does not accept any framework in which what you did was anything other than a sustained, deliberate, and contemptuous betrayal of every child who passed through your school. He sentenced Gregory Lim to 30 months in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. He ordered restitution in the amount of $197,420, payable to the Brookfield Township School District Activity Account Fund. He permanently barred him from any employment in any Pennsylvania public or private school in any capacity for the remainder of his life. Gregory Lim served his sentence at SCI Camp Hill in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. He worked in the prison's clerical office. He was released in July 2025 to a halfway house in Harrisburg. He is currently employed as a part-time bookkeeper for a regional warehousing company. His children, now teenagers, have not visited him. They use their mother's maiden name. The Brookfield Township School District revised its activity account oversight policies in the spring of 2023. 2 signatures are now required on every deposit. The PTA treasurer reconciles the activity account bank statement against the school's internal ledger every month. Every cash collection is double counted by 2 staff members. The total cost of these reforms to the district was approximately $14,000 a year in additional administrative time. It is, by every measure, an indictment of how cheap the fix was. The amount Gregory Lim stole equaled, almost exactly, the cost of 1 fifth-grade overnight trip per year for the entire student body of Westmoreland Elementary for 7 years. That trip would have gone to Gettysburg. The students who would have gone are in middle school now. This case was quiet. But the case on the right-hand side is louder, uglier, and somehow even harder to believe. Click it now.